That one message, "You're dead," delivered with pure evil, would forever destroy the trust that is crucial for a loving relationship. She would have fear, doubt, and worry whenever she approached me, no matter what I try to do in the future to undo my pure act of evil. I could tell her over and over, "Mom, I didn't mean it. Please, Mom, forgive me. You know that I love you." And nobody telling her that her son has bipolar disorder could possibly heal the wound, nor excuse the action. Having said that, however, even the likelihood of me being able to approach my mother with love in my heart, after such a pure act of unadulterated evil, is very remote. The act of evil destroys both the one doing the evil and the one the evil is done to, although the one receiving the evil cannot be eternally destroyed unless they allow the evil perpetrated against them to do so. That relationship is forever annihilated because trust is destroyed. Because I knew in my mind and heart how easy it is to destroy a relationship, I began obsessing with my godlike power to destroy a relationship in a second. I was terrified that I would destroy all of my genuine relationships with family, friends, and loved ones by careless and hateful words. Just because the possibility was there, I knew it to be an option, which was not something I considered in my pre-isolated God state. Before, I considered myself a good person and believed deep down that I could never intentionally hurt someone. Many people, I believe, share this same view, but when my soul was isolated from God's loving presence, I knew how easy it would be to intentionally hurt someone. I was terrified by my absolute freedom. I felt as though I wanted God to take that freedom away and love for me, rather than allowing me to make a choice to love on my own. I knew that given enough time, even if I were able to prevent myself from acting out my sick and twisted fantasies, soon enough I would let hate-filled words spew out of my mouth with such venom that it would literally be no better than had I used a knife or a chainsaw to destroy. While I was recovering in the hospital, every minute seemed like an eternity. I would stare at the clock, hoping that something would change in my heart, hoping that I'd feel a spark of hope or an ounce of love. Over and over, I continually felt that eventually I would snap and prove beyond all doubt that I was evil to those who were caring for me, insisting that they did not see an evil man before them. I imagined in my head what they would say when I proved my claims were true. "Oh my God!" they would exclaim after I used expletives at them and threatened their lives. "You were right! You are evil!" That's all it would take for me to enter hell. I knew at the core of my very being. Word would quickly spread about the threat I was to others, and the evil I had portrayed in my sinister and unimaginable verbal violence towards those who were looking after my needs and caring for both my body and my soul. Trust would never again be regained by the grace of God. I was spared from allowing my tongue to set fire to my entire body. I threw myself into Scripture, searching for hope, searching for love. And although my eyes glossed over every verse that spoke of Christ's incredible love for me, and all I could focus on were the verses that spoke of hell and damnation and punishment for evildoers, somehow those scriptures of love entered my soul and gave me just enough strength to survive. For the first several days, when I was given food, I devoured it immediately, trying to fill that hole in my soul with something. I would literally shovel the food into my mouth without barely tasting it. As I felt like an animal, I behaved like an animal. However, as time went by, and I became more and more aware that each meal might be my last before all hell broke loose, I took tiny bites and would savor the food down to the last drop. I would lick my plate clean. I cannot recall how many times I ate in this way, truly believing that after the meal, I might snap and attack the people who were tending to my needs and caring for me so lovingly. I completely empathized with the serial killer who was given his last meal on death row before his execution. That last meal tastes better to the serial killer than any meal he has ever tasted in his life, as he knows he will never taste food again, nor experience life. Several times I requested for those in the hospital to put me in restraints. So afraid was I of my ability to do evil. A chaplain visited me in the hospital after the restraints had been applied, and I confessed to the chaplain that I was evil and deserved to die, and that I was full of demons. I told him I was afraid I was going to act out the sinful impulses within me, and he brought his face right up to mine and declared that I would never do such a thing. He told me God was more powerful than the demons within me. I tried to take hope from his message, but I had extreme difficulty doing so. There were many ways I tried to find peace and escape the evil within me. I received small comforts and tried to brainwash myself so that I could find peace in lying down silently in my bed. I would try to find peace lying on my back. Then when I could fool myself no longer that peace was there, I would try to find peace lying on my stomach. Then with my head turned to the left. Then with my head turned to the right. After a time, however, peace eluded me, and I could bear it no more. I would then crawl under the bed, hoping that by some remotest chance I might find peace there. I would lay there for a time, until I realized I would never attain peace under the bed. So I turned to the toilet, which became one of my constant companions. I had severe diarrhea, and as it took my mind off my evil thoughts, for a few moments, and focused my energies on the physical sensations that I was having, I welcomed it with open arms, and would literally move back and forth between the bed and the toilet maybe 100 times or more a day. There was small comfort in me relieving myself, but looking back on it, I felt that if it were not there as a consolation, I might have acted out. Water became essential to me, and my thirst was unquenchable. I would drink, even when I was not thirsty, just to savor the delicious taste of water, knowing that in hell I would never wet my lips again. God sent angels to me in the form of humans. One woman heard my story from beginning to end, and simply loved me, and told me that God had not given up on me. She told me that even though everything seemed dark, that somehow God had a plan for my life. I truly wanted to believe her, but because of my internal reality, I couldn't fully accept what she was telling me. Jonathan, as time went on, my physical wounds were healed, and I had reached enough stability that I was moved to a mental hospital called Heritage Oaks in Sacramento, California for further recuperation. It was here that I met some of the dearest, most loving people who nurtured my soul, and yet I did not accept their nurture and their love as coming from God. I still felt God was judgmental and hated me, because that is what my internal reality felt like. As horrific as the events of 9/11 were, I was somewhat relieved when I had been awakened by a friend and told that the towers had been struck. I watched in amazement and horror as I viewed the second tower collapse right in front of my eyes on CNN. It gave me something to think about other than my own problems, and it was like a breath of fresh air, and then I could voice my concern, my horror as to what happened. In doing so, I felt like a caring human being again for the first time in weeks. Even if I was only play acting at the time, it felt good to feel sorry for other people. It felt good to feel angry at evil that wasn't my own. I think the events of 9/11 in many ways were a turning point for me. It gave new direction to my thoughts. I still retained the obsessive, evil thoughts, but they started to fade, and I began to enjoy more and more the company of others. Jonathan, I'm going to skip forward a bit now. From that terrible moment, that realization that I was the Antichrist and would be forever separated from God and all good, it took about 2 to 3 years for full recovery. I had a horrible relapse in Christmas of 2002, where I spent the holidays with my family at my aunt and uncle's house in Salem. I again felt I would not be able to hide my evil nature, and again found myself trapped in the notion that I was the Antichrist. Although I recovered more quickly, it was no less devastating. I'll continue this in the next chapter.